Join me now is former U.S. Congressman and Senator. Let me do that again. Ready? Join me now is former U.S. Congressman from Minnesota. He ran for U.S. Senate. I personally think he won that election, but that's just me. He now resides in a sane state, the state of Florida. He may be very glad to be out of Minnesota. I'm glad. I lived up there for far too many years. I'm glad I got out 21 years ago this March. And down here in Tennessee, it's much more sane. He joins us now because there's a lot going on there with the fraud. And then sadly today, a lady lost her life, at the hands of ICE. But it seems to be because she was running a vehicle toward the guy. So we'll show the footage. It's a real mess all the way around. It's a PR problem. And it seems to be extending the whole a move toward a civil war that seems to be, Jason, welcome, Happy New Year, it seems to be the civil war is being pushed by local, state, and I would say community organizers from California to Oregon to New York City. We're going to take your property. White people are going to lose their property. And then you add this into the equation, and I'm not blaming anyone yet. It's too early. I'm just saying all of this seems to be setting the stage for what I think the enemy's foreign and domestic wants is massive chaos in the U.S. and maybe civil war for the enemies of America, Russia, Iran, etc., China, to move, whether it's Taiwan, Japan, this is really turning into a very messy beginning of 2026. Let's just let you go there.
Well, it's getting more insane all the time. And the real danger is not just the organizers being funded by somebody like George Soros. I mean, the Open Society Network has got their fingerprints all over these dark money nonprofits throughout the world and in the United States. Bricks don't just appear in the middle of George Floyd riots 5 years ago. But what's worse than that, Brandon, is elected officials openly engaged in sedition.
Yeah.
They are interfering with the constitutional duty of federal officers who are doing everything by the book. There is nothing illegal about sending ICE agents anywhere to deport illegal aliens. That is a federal function. States don't do that. Only the federal government has the power over immigration. So what these people are doing, from Tim Walz to Jacob Fry, is they are engaged in a form of sedition by deliberately encouraging the obstruction of federal justice. And that's how a civil war begins. It's how it began in 2020 when they encouraged open rioting. You're seeing it now. Walz obviously trying to deflect from future criminal probes into his activity, but so is Fry for that matter. They are engaged in a civil war already. And now what do you see? You see a tragedy today, but it was fomented by the powers that be that I told everybody about 5 years ago when I was running for the Senate, that I warned people repeatedly about it, that I wrote in my book, Party Animal, The Truth About President Trump, Power Politics, and the Partisan Press. You have a Democrat media complex in this society that doesn't give a damn about the Constitution if they don't like when someone enforces it. In particular on illegal immigration. It'd be an easy way to stop all of this. Let the federal government use its constitutional duty to enforce the borders. It's over. Then it's done. And they are not.
And look at this headline article by my friend Daniel Greenfield. Minnesota Department faked documents to cover up grant fraud. It looks like this thing was really being done by community organizations, probably politicians very aware, government agencies very aware. That's what it seems to show, right? I mean, this is criminal activity, right?
The lily white, self-loathing Lutherans in the bowels of the DHS, in the bowels of the woke movement, they are the ones that manned government. It's a little bit like Joe Biden. Nobody believes Joe is running the government. So who was it? It was the deep state. And that's who's running Minnesota. And not only did they cover up the paperwork on these grant applications that had no description of what the grant recipients were doing, but now we're getting all sorts of reports from testimony today in front of Jimmy Comer's oversight committee that employees who wanted to be whistleblowers, who were telling people about this, were threatened, quote unquote, veiled threats of military surveillance. Are you kidding me? For a Department of Human Services employee in the Twin Cities, a veiled threat of military intelligence monitoring you because you're a whistleblower? This is what Animal Farm and Orwell was talking about. And it's very, very scary, but it was bound to happen after 2020. I hate to say it, but it was bound to happen because when you did not heed warnings from people like me, people like Walz, and really all the Democrats in Minnesota, put that state on a collision course with the Constitution, with law and order, with the federal government doing their duty, with free speech, you name it. And now the reckoning is here.
And now the reckoning is here. So where do you think this is going? Do you think there's an off-ramp for civil war, or do you really think it's going to go hot?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it depends if Minnesotans finally stand up and say enough. The fly in the ointment has always been people in Minnesota not willing to engage the radical left that was taking over. Groups like the Minnesota Business Partnership that went along with it. NPR, the Star Tribune, the Minnesota media. Certainly, you had a few DHS employees that have done more in a couple of months than all the other institutions in Minnesota, including the churches, by the way, ever could think of doing. They just rolled over like sheep and they said, may I have another, sir? And the question becomes, are they willing to fight back now? And I don't know the answer to that. So far, the answer's been no.
Let's go real quick in the remaining moments because I know you're on a tight schedule. What do you make of Venezuela? Now we have grabbed a tanker that I guess was supposedly a Russian tanker. What do you make of all this?
Well, it's a Monroe Doctrine redux here. I mean, this is what, for a president that didn't want foreign conflicts from Greenland to Venezuela, we're sure getting a lot of them, but they do have one distinct characteristic. They are close to home. And what Trump is moving away from, it seems to me, is this tripwire in Europe. And by the way, a European Union that does not believe in free speech, that wants to put bases in Ukraine, that is engaged in all sorts of nefarious activities. Trump is saying, no, that's over. That's a Cold War anachronism. We're now concerned with our sphere of influence in our hemisphere, and we are going to keep it. And that's very much like the Monroe Doctrine, very much like Teddy Roosevelt. Will he overstep his bounds? I suppose at times he will, but that's entirely different than plunging in to non-Christian countries in the Middle East thinking you can nation build. It's an entirely different enterprise.
Any other issue you want to bring to the attention that maybe you're writing about at Substack before you go?
Well, I mean, we just put our post at jasonlewis.substack.com about my warning in 2018. In front of at the Ed and Workforce Committee when I had heard the testimony of then HHS Secretary Azar, and we warned in 2018, and it's there at jasonlewis.substack.com, that there is a massive fraud happening in Minneapolis or Minnesota right now. In those days, it was only $100 million with childcare. I asked the secretary to call it out. We wanted to eliminate the block grants that was funding it. I said, if it isn't stopped, it'll blow up to be the greatest scandal imaginable. Thinking about that, that was 7 years in the hearing, Ed and Workforce hearing with the HHS secretary. Nobody listened. We lost the midterms, and the Democrat congressional delegation from Minnesota made certain the issue was dropped. Here we are 7 years later, and we've got $9 billion in fraud. If you want to see it, go to jasonlewis.substack.com.
All right, Jason, as always, thank you for being with us. We need to get you back on more regularly long term. I know you're on a crunch tonight, but thank you for being with us.
All right, Brandon. Thank you, sir.
Jason Lewis checking in, jasonlewis.substack.com. Check out his site, jasonlewis.substack.com. We'll be right back.